some basketball as well that happened over the weekend. The playoffs second round started this week, and as expected, I think they are going as you would think they are going. In the ladies category, JKO Dolphins is 2-0 up on KO Rangers, but they have not been as convincing as they would be. They have basically struggled through the two games that they have played, and you'd think they could get a little bit better. The Leopards, this has been the biggest game in the women's basketball in the country, and as you'd expect, because Kese have been the best side since the start of the second round, they beat down UCU Lady Cannons in the opening game. Lady Cannons did not do anything to that much to what Kese were doing, and of course Kese went a game up, and game 2 is going to be played today, actually this evening at YMCA. You expect UCU Lady Cannons to respond, but it's going to be tough. They have to find answers for Martha Thoigi and Irankunda if they are to get anything out of this series. But mind you, they need to level this series if they are to be competitive, because it's a best of 5. You lose 2 games in a row, it becomes a little bit complicated. Now, in the men's category, Warriors were very underwhelming against the State Oilers, who are struggling with injuries. State Oilers have just 2 big men available to them. That is Landry Ndukumana and James Okello, with the rest basically guards, and they are basically using guards to play forward positions, which we thought Warriors would take advantage of, but they did not. I think there was a coaching deficiency in game 1. If Ronnie Mutebi went back and reviewed that video, he knows that he should have done better with how he put out his team. Every time State Oilers, of course, they were small, but every time they decided to go extra small with just one big man on the court, Ronnie Mutebi also responded by going with a small team. And given how smart State Oilers are, I mean, in terms of the players and the coaching, Warriors were swamped. And if Ronnie Mutebi hasn't reviewed that game yet, he could go 2-0 down today at YMCA. Game 2 is for that YMCA at around 8 p.m. Then Power and UCU Cannons have already played 2 games, and they have split them. Power were too much. I used a lot of experience in the opening game to beat UCU Cannons, but given how Cannons are, you were expecting them to respond, and on Sunday evening they responded. It was not as clean as it would be because Isaac Afidra turned back the clock for Power, and he nearly carried them over the line for game 2, but UCU Cannons, who could run all night, play the game like it was some exhibition game, dunking here and there, Fayed Bali doing Fayed Bali things, and now those series are level at 1-1, and game 3 is tomorrow night, and also the game 3 of JK and KO Rangers is tomorrow night, and you think maybe JK will be through by tomorrow. The rest of the series are still going on. I think that was major hit from the basketball, and also this weekend it was an action-packed weekend all across the board. The Uganda Cup Finals in the rugby happened. That is like the season opener, the season opening tournament, and the finals happened between the biggest rivals. Actually, probably the only rivals in Ugandan rugby, Heathens and Cobs. They had the showdown at Kings Park, and it was as close as you'd expect, but the Blue Army shockingly rose from the dead to edge that one. And joining me to discuss all the rugby is Ernest Akol. Ernest, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you, Franklin? How was your weekend?
Very well. When we're going into the rugby final, last weekend, you said Heathens had the edge, but given the rivalry between these two teams, it could go anywhere. What did you make of the final, first of all?
First, initially, I thought Heathens, and that's how they started the game, will dominate in the park, play the ball in the park, and then send it out wide for their backliners to utilize as they can get back in line in formation and they can move forward in the park. And that's what they did, taking a commanding lead in the first half of 8-3. And one would think that after that one try had been of 8-5, it's 8-5 because Justin Chimono touched down, but with a very poor day for the kickers in general, because on both sides there were a couple of missed penalties, a couple of poor kicks in open play for territory and possession. But taking an 8-5 lead at halftime, Heathens looked poised to win the Uganda Cup Championship. But a few nerves of steel in the middle there, some cases of indiscipline gifted Cobs a chance to attack, and that's what they did. I look at the way Cobs played, and I think they decided to go against the script that we had hoped for last week. Yeah. Choosing to call for a scrum, choosing to carry the ball instead of going for the line out, and they can set up close to the 5, was a very, very brave call from Captain Brian Asava on the day, and I think that is what won them the game, because from there, they set up the ball and phase after phase, phase after phase, causing Heathens to commit repeated infringements, and they got a man down in the sin bin. It was done and dusted for Cobs, who touched down, and even after scoring that try, all their hopes rested in the boots of one man, Ivan Chirabo, who had missed 4 kicks on the day earlier, but their trust in him was not in vain, and he converted that penalty for them to win 14-15.
What was behind of course, Davis Chiwara made sweeping changes in his lineup. He had Joseph Aredo, who was time after time been a fullback, and brought him at fly half, and then had Chimono at inside center. What was going on in Davis Chiwara's head to make those changes? I
think, knowing how Heathens play, you'd expect when the scrum is set up, you saw the try they scored against the Pirates over the weekend. Knowing how they play is, once the ball is theirs in the scrum, they'll try to push it out and try to push the ball from the scrum. But if they play the ball out of the scrum, it is going to be an 8th man pick, an 8-9 gameplay. So an 8-9 gameplay, you send your number 10, most teams defend with the center close to the park and then the number 10 outside. You want a strong defender to combat the big power carrier in Scott Oloch at number 8. And that's what they did. Place Chimono there. Every time Scott Oloch picked the ball for an 8-9 pick, Chimono was there to stop the attack before it can even start. And in defense, it worked well for Cobs because Chimono was at the center of the fray. In attack, it worked well for them as well because he's a powerful ball carrier, and to my shock, over the weekend he actually can decide to pass when he needs to at the right moment, and we saw some good phases of attack for Cobs in the half as they played, especially in the second half as they tried to dominate the game. So I think it was a very good call from Davis Chiwara to have Aredo at number 10 instead of the sure number 15 where we know him for, trusting that he's going to play the commanding role that he did. And I think the kicking game for Cobs was a bit low on standard. Aredo was slow in making his decisions to kick. We saw a charge down. We also saw a kick that went straight out. And I think there, Aredo maybe, should I say, after taking a big hit from Scott Oloch as he was trying to clear his half, it could have phased him, but he got back into the game and commanded well for the line to play.
For the Heathens, was there a rushed decision to take off Kanyanya? I thought Kanyanya had executed the line out well, and they had called it well between Uhuru and Diego. Now he brought on the experienced Mubiru, and Mubiru, I think, failed on 2 attempts. Did that have an effect on how the game went for Heathens?
Knowing that Heathens had lost a player in Uhuru, he got a knock on the head and he had to go off a blood bin and he couldn't come back on. There was a certain gap, like a small gap in the leadership on the pitch. And I think the coach, Muhammad Athio, felt he needed that experience, that leadership to give him the extra push, because Heathens were in control of the game. But at that point, Alex Mubiru comes on and throws two bad lineouts. One is caught by Aziku at the back, and then another one is stolen by the jump at number 2. It completely rubs him out of the game, and that is where Cobbs decided to take the commanding point. They said, if he is having a bad day as the front row, we can push them in the scrum. And every decision that they got from the penalties, they called for a scrum instead of going for points, which would have maybe, remember, their kicker, Ivan Chirawa, had been missing the whole day. So they felt if we can actually keep the ball on pitch and score points, it is a much easier decision than to, yes, we know if you kick and miss, they kick back to you and you get the chance to play. But then they've taken you back a few meters in attack. So they chose to trust their pack, and they used that deficiency of Alex Mubiru having a bad day after just coming onto the pitch to take control of the game.
Okay. And Heathen's fullback, Oyet.
Yes.
He was trying to kick for some space. I mean, you know, it is a game of
territory and possession,
as they call it. Oyet in his kicking, he was kicking straight at almost I think Maso
and Adrian Casito.
What was he trying to do out there instead of kicking in space as you'd expect naturally from a player? Did he make things easier for get Cobbs off the ropes a little bit?
I think initially when we saw the squad, we all knew what was in Davis Chuarabi's mind. Yes. That I have a man in Adrian Casito at the back. Those are sure hands. That is a very, very keen positioning as a fullback in two places where he thinks the ball is going to be and at the correct distance. In the first half, we saw Joseph Oyet kicking the ball behind Daudi Maso and a few bouncing balls here and settled him at the beginning of the game. Yeah. But as the half goes on, Joseph Oyet decides to start kicking to Adrian Casito. But Adrian Casito is the master of a ball in the air, and he made no mistake in collecting all those balls that were kicked in an area, in his zone, in an area where he was standing. And I think Joseph Oyet may have had a good first half. He may have put the points on the board for the Heathens, but it is that kicking for territory and possession that didn't come quite off well for me. And it could have played into the hands of Cobbs, who had Daudi Maso, Daudi Semwami, and Daudi Maso and Adrian Casito under that ball. Yeah. And if he kicks on to the other side, we have Conrad Mukwaya and high towering Ian Munyani to collect with much ease. So I think the kicking from the Heathens full back left a lot to be desired on the day when they felt they should have kept Cobbs at bay away from their own territory.
Okay, before we come back to the final, let's talk something small about the other final that happened at Makerere. What happened at Makerere?
Well, we all know that there's the loud boys in the league, that is Makerere Impis, and they may not do much on the pitch as regards putting points on the board and scoring, but they play some very beautiful rugby, and I think they deservedly won that trophy for the Shield with a try from Pius and then 9 points yet again from Henry Sekuye. So one would think, how does Impis manage to play such a dominant game against Rams? It is a derby, and they've redefined themselves as the side. If you come playing an aggressive game, they'll play the aggressive game. But then they will not forget their style of rugby, which is expansive play. Let's play territory. Let's keep the ball as the line moves, and then we capitalize on the advantage of a man in space or the advantage of a penalty where we know our kicker will convert the points. And I think it was a close final, but they were the deserved winners on the day, winning 14-13. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the third place playoff between Pirates, your Pirates, and Mwangans. What does it show for Pirates going into the season? Is it not going to be a long season for Pirates, given how they have performed in the Uganda Cup against opponents that are at the same level with them?
I choose to look at, when I'm asked such a question, and we've had this discussion quite a number of times here at office, and I choose to look at the treble winning season for the Pirates in 2017. We won the Uganda Cup, we won the season, with only one loss to Rhinos, courtesy of Kevin McMott kicking in a game that ended 3-0. at Legends, and then also the Sevens Trophy, a clean sweep of that year, of that season. And there's one thing, I don't know if people have noticed that, but there's one defining factor on that team which Pirates has been missing in the past season and which we look to be missing even in this season. The seasoned ex-players, the seasoned and experienced players that we had on that team. That season, Pirates' main kicker was surprisingly a lock in Joel Anguyo Debo, and the long kicks he was kicking from beyond the half line in some of those defining games, for example, the game against Buffaloes that ended a close 2-point, 3-point difference, courtesy of some points from him. How we won against Heathens in that season, same man from the points from him. And I think Pirates is a team of vibrant and brilliant rugby players rising onto the scene. Some have already made it onto the national team. But it is that season where the experience and leadership from those players like Tusime, they were popularly called China, when Marvin Odong was off injury, it is that inspiration from Daniel Chanowera, Dennis Etuket was still playing. It is those players, that caliber of players that the team had, which helped them to sweep the whole season. And it's what we are missing now. And yes, we have good players. We have players who have stepped into the shoes of leadership, but the other teams have now got that ingredient into their side. Heathens called back most of their players. Cobs, as we can see this season, now have those players back into the squad. Oscar Kaliango is back. Brian Asaba is back, he's playing. Justin Chimono is also back from injury, he's playing. So I think it will take a lot from the young Pirates to prove to be a dominant force in the season for them to stand a chance to win the league. But I think when we look at the fixtures, when we take a look at the fixtures, I think the Pirates will stand a chance because you get to play against the top two sides, the rivals, Heathens or Cobs, when they have already lost the game. Remember, the opening fixture of the season is going to be Heathens versus Cobs on the 29th of November in what is going to be the first ever Floodlights 15s game in Uganda in the Premiership. And we look forward to that game because from the Uganda Cup Final to the first game of the season, it is going to be a cracker with either a please sit down from Cobs or a you are lucky the other time and we are the big boys in town from Heathens. So by the time Pirates plays either Cobs or Heathens, I don't think there will be a draw in that game. So one of them will have lost the game in the season. And so Pirates will be playing from a motivated point where they've already won a couple of games before they go into those fixtures. And I think it is what is going to be instrumental for the team, how they manage themselves from game after game going forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ernest. I want to send some shout-outs here again before we get out. Here, Joseph Owino, you have been watching. Salim Saleh, Seviala, Inospa, you have been watching as well. Thank you everyone who has been following this show today, and we're glad to have you along. We would like to get your feedback on the show and through the comment section and all that. We'll be back next week. Have a good night for now.